So I think a lot of people, they probably heard that maybe, what was it, a few days ago, we had the lawsuit that came out versus, CGC or CCG, who owns CGC, versus the Terrazas. And this was the insider scam thing where people were stealing books that worked in CGC. And so this was a surprise. I don't think nobody expected this case, at least. Like some people will say, like I said earlier, like, oh, I knew this was happening, that kind of stuff. But this was more of a surprise. Then on February 2nd, but people just started talking about this from what I heard late last night. That's when I heard about it. We had this case, which was CGC versus Zanello et al. So it's Ulysses Zanello and Bree Riva. And this is the Reholder scam. And so if you've, I talked about this earlier, but if this Bree Riva, one of the eBay accounts that was identified as selling those books was B Riva 3. And they actually talk about that in the actual, the complaint, that was submitted. And so this is the whole Reholder thing. Like this is, now we actually have the real scam. This is the one that everybody's been talking about, that's blown up everything. That is this. And so Mickey made a video about this and kind of going over the different filings late last night, if you want to go check that out. But what came out today was we had this guy, Paul Lesko, who is like a lawyer who often speaks on collectibles issues. And he was the one that a lot of us, when we were talking about the theft scam, it was his recap that we were going over. And so he did a recap here now of this new one. And so if we just kind of we won't have to go into necessarily like the nitty gritty details. You can see in the new lawsuit, CGC is taking on Ulysses Zanello and Bree Riva, who allegedly engaged in what they advertised as CGC certified comic books in CGC holders, but in reality were swapped for interior lower value comics. This is that whole scam. And they go into the details here, and they talk about, for example, some of the eBay accounts. These are what people had been openly talking about, but not all of them. The only ones I had heard were Comic Selects and Briva 3. But there was also Corner 152, Elysium 140, Corner 142, Elysium 142, Zangalore, which I think was the account on Instagram. If I remember correctly, that was the name on Instagram, and Oraleg, how you ever pronounce that. And then you also had the Bree Riva owned the Comic Selects and B Riva 3. So if you've ever bought books from those accounts, it's possible that you bought a compromised book. So, if you want to come and check this out, come to Paul Lesko's Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and, look those up, and you can look into that yourself, maybe the history of what you've purchased. Then it goes into how many books were actually impacted. And this is something that we all were interested in. Now, I think at least on the CGC forums, like people have been saying, like, this is a lot of books, like, more than the 350 that CGC had mentioned, but that was just the number of books that this person had either submitted or sold. And so here it says that they submitted 2,000 plus comic books. So definitely a lot more than the 350, but we don't actually know how many of those are compromised. A lot of them, or most of them, are probably fine. But they said 369 of those 2,000 were reholders. And that's where that whole 350 number came from. That's where that all comes from, is it's the reholders. And so that's what we were all kind of speculating, that they were just focused on the reholders, but we didn't know for sure. And this kind of gives us a little more confidence about that. Well, sometimes the defendants allegedly skipped the fourth step, reholdering, and just sold the swap comic books to consumers in the original CGC holder. So any book they handled, period. So where's that one? Did I miss because that's what I'm trying to go through these. So let's see. Oh, here we go. You did call it out. All right. Although sometimes the defendants allegedly skipped the fourth step, which was submitted the lower value copy to CGC for reholdering, and just sold the swap comic books to the consumers in the original holder. So that's where the, that good. Thanks a lot, Major Strange. Thanks for pointing that one out. I did not see that. So yeah, that's the fear, right? That out of the 2,000 books, that means it's not just reholders. And I know like Keep It Thorough had been doing some videos on this for a while, and he had shown some books that people that he knows had sent him that he was pretty sure were probably trimmed and that kind of thing, and they hadn't been reholdered. And so that could possibly be the case here, the people that had bought from this person. And so that could possibly be the case here, like some of these books that they had sold without sending back in through reholdering. And that's what brings the entire 2,000 books into question, and probably why the full 2,000 book list should be published and dealt with that way. And, if this person sold all these books, this person probably hasn't, they have the money to go after them and take that money and repay the people that got robbed, right? So, but yeah, thanks for calling that out. I did not catch that. They also say that they seem to have ramped up their submissions in the last few years. So, I mean, maybe that tells us they were legit dealers up until 2020 or 2021, and then all of a sudden they found this flaw that they could take advantage of, and they started doing this. I don't know. I have no idea. But it was, in 2021, it was 253 submissions. 2022 was 345. 2023 was 329. So a lot more submissions. And there probably would have been more in 2023, maybe if they hadn't gotten caught at the end of the year. Then he says the total aggregate value, and this is on the thumbnail that I made, was $4 million. And now this was based on the value that they put in for the book when they submitted it for reholdering or for grading. And so in reality, that value could be way higher than $4 million. A lot of people, you don't put in the actual, you think the final resale value for the book. You might put in a lower value so it gets in a lower tier or whatever it is. And if you're resubbing or reslabbing, maybe you don't want to pay the $50 reslab fee. You want to pay the $20 reslab fee. So you put it's under $1,000 when it's actually over $1,000, all that kind of stuff. So I would say at least $4 million, maybe a lot more than $4 million. So you can tell right there, regardless, this is a way bigger deal than the theft scam. The other thing is the theft one, you fire those people, it's resolved. You get people's money back, whatever. But that one, they were talking about $26,000 in sales, 4 million. This is not a small number. Then it says they discovered it around December 21st. That was when 99 Newsstand came out with, his finding on that Amazing Spider-Man 252 Mark Jewelers. And that's when this whole investigation, everything started. So then they show a few of the books, they show a Hulk 340. And these are the ones, if you had been following this whole thing, these are some of the common books that we saw: Hulk 340, Amazing Spider-Man 252, New Mutants 98. And basically, they're suing them for damaging their name. Because that's really what it is. It's how much has this damaged their name? Are they, are people submitting less books now because of it? I mean, I know, I am, I have a bunch of books I was planning on submitting, and I'm just holding off right now. And I don't know. I mean, I might, it all depends how long it's going to be till this thing gets fixed. I might just finally start sending stuff in again if it seems like it's going to be a year or 2 years. But at least for now, I'm holding off. I know I remember Gary said on when he was on Pressable Defects, he was holding off sending stuff in. So we'd like to see some type of, some change there, whether it's a new case or what. And we talked about this earlier in the video, other mitigations, interim steps, some type of hollow seal, sticker on the edge or on the corners or whatever, something that doesn't require a whole new slabbing machine, casing machine, but they could do as a step afterwards, that kind of thing. What can you do there to address this? But yeah, I mean, he goes into, just again, all the details here. It says, CGC alleges the defendant recently became aware that their fraudulent scheme was unraveling. So Zanello called CGC to attempt to recover 3 books that the defendant had recently submitted. So he's trying to get some of the evidence back, all this kind of stuff. CGC has already confirmed that a number of comic books submitted by defendants for reholdering have been swapped, and that it's reviewing hundreds of other comic books submitted by defendants, and expects to find that many of these were also swapped. So that means maybe there's more. That's something we didn't talk about actually earlier. This sounds like maybe I think that was a question we were all wondering, was that 350 book list going to grow? And it didn't really seem like it off, when we talked about it with the original conversation with Matt Nelson on West Coast Avengers, but this seems like maybe it is. Maybe that list is going to grow. So we'll have to see, just keep watching and see what other news we get. Since mid-December, CGC has received multiple inquiries from individual comic book collectors and consignment businesses who believe defendants duped them. So, yeah, I mean, it's just all of this. It sucks. I mean, I think we all know that. It all sucks. We don't want. Nobody wants this. Nobody wants the theft. Nobody wants the scamming. But this stuff is, it's going to happen. Whenever there's money involved, and there can be big money in comics. I mean, you saw that, that Mark Jewelers 98 newsstand sold for $15,700. I mean, there's big money in this. if people are willing to take that risk. And so you have to put controls in place to try and protect from that. And we talked about that earlier, some other things they could do, maybe CGC needs to hire some new people, like to put in positions where they're actually like, their job is to find this stuff. Their job is to try and prevent this. And you would hope that those positions are there already, but given the fact that this stuff happened, they either aren't there, or they aren't funded well enough, or there aren't enough people there to actually do the job that needs to be done. And so again, hopefully all this stuff ends up improving the processes there. If you were to take a random sample of 100 slabs from across the country, most times all 100 will be legitimate. The vast majority of slabs are fine. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. I mean, out of the 10 million slabs, most are fine. The problem comes up, and we talked about this when the whole scam broke and the list of books came out. It's when the percentage of books in that grade can start to be impacted. So like the 9.8 Amazing Spider-Man 194s, like it's a huge percentage of it was like 10% or 12% were this person's Reholder submissions of the 9.8s. So it's like, those are actually measurable. But not this, but not the average book, not most books. Just got here. Did you talk about the comic link connection? I did not. I saw a little, like I hadn't, before I started this whole thing, I decided to go live instead of filming a video. I decided to go live and try to go through this. I hadn't checked the comic link condition, but this says comic link right here. Let's talk about that. In addition, on or about December 30th, 2023, CGC became aware that a large and well-respected comic book auction firm, Comic Link, was in possession of a number of potentially swapped comic books in CGC holders consigned to them by defendants. Because Comic Link believed they had received legitimate high-value comic books certified by CGC, Comic Link advanced Zanello tens of thousands of dollars for the comic books. Yikes. Also, CGC became aware, in addition... Oh, okay. That's where he's zooming in on this little part here. So I guess that's the Comic Link connection. Yeah. I don't know if they got their money back or what, how that all worked. Oh, here we go. So that's not it. So let's see. All right. Let's see what else is here. Sorry. Like I said, I'm scrolling through here, but that's not it, because CGC also brings a motion for temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction against the defendants too, as they say in the biz. I'm not going to say the word, shut that down now. As well as to get documents and materials from defendants ASAP. For the injunction, CGC wants the defendants to stop using CGC's trademarks in any manner whatsoever, as well as to not hide, destroy, alter evidence in the case. For the expected discovery, CGC wants bunches of info and material within 14 days, as well as including defendants' complete sales records for any counterfeit reholdered books. So that's about it. It says, busy week for CGC. It's only going to get busier since it's seeking TROs in both this and the Traz's case. So maybe we'll get 2 hearings and 2 orders next week to talk about as well. So yeah, make sure you follow Paul Lesko on Twitter. You'll get all kinds of interesting updates about this. And yeah, that's a question. Are we going to get more, are more scams are going to be found, or is this the extent of it and all that? Nobody really knows. I mean, I know plenty of people think like there's all kinds of other things going on out there, and maybe there are, but I don't know.